Hello, I'm Rosie Vision, and welcome to the It Feels Like Magic podcast. This project started off as a video series on my YouTube channel where I watched the 4Kids dub of Winx Club for the very first time. I've been a fan of Winx Club for over a decade at this point, but I grew up with the Cinelume English version. I'm still a fan of the series to this day, and I figured I'd go ahead and give the 4Kids dub a shot since so many people seem to love it. And I love a lot of what 4Kids has done with other series as well, so why not? Since the series started off on YouTube, the audio for this episode will be from the original video. But I'm changing a few things and adding this intro to make it flow better. I'm planning on watching all of the 4Kids dub in 2-episode chunks. So I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me. I'm still uploading videos of this series on my YouTube channel, Rosie Vision, so you can watch those if you'd prefer. But now that we've got all that out of the way, here is episode 1 of the podcast.
Watch the dub and open my mind. Believe in 4Kids. Time to unwind. Can it be true? Let's wait and see if 4Kids dub can do everything amazing. Rewatching Winx, come join the fun. Rewatching Winx. Let's have some fun. Rewatching Winx.
I kind of want to revisit Winx Club, but by watching the 4Kids version. I grew up on the Cinelume version because I watched Winx Club on YouTube and that's just what I had. I accidentally got the 4Kids version when I rented it from the library one time, and I was very confused. So really I've only seen maybe like 2-3 episodes of it, and that's about it. And as a kid, I will admit, I was completely biased. I refused to accept the 4Kids dub, even though I watched other things that 4Kids made, like Mew Mew Power, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Sonic X. But now that I'm a bit older, I think I'm a lot better at being objective. I'm still definitely biased, I will say that, but after watching the 4Kids version of the Halloween special, I think I'm up for a pretty fun time watching the 4Kids version. So I'm starting a series where I go through episodes and share my thoughts as a first-time watcher. And today I watched the first and second episode of Winx Club, but the 4Kids version. Right off the bat, opening, as we all already knew, I absolutely love. It's probably the only part of 4Kids Winx Club that I'm super familiar with. Even though I haven't seen the show, I still know pretty much all the words. I'm not really good with lyrics personally, but I'd say I probably know a good like 90%, and it's hard not to follow along every time I hear it. If you don't quite remember what happens in the first episode, I'll give a quick rundown. Basically, we're introduced to Bloom as our main character as she lives in Gardenia, and she comes across Stella, fighting a nut, an ogre. Bloom discovers that she has magical powers while trying to help Stella, and they end up bonding together. But as Stella's trying to help Bloom get the hang of her powers, they get targeted by the Trix, who use Nut and a troll to attack. But at the end of the day, they're able to make it through with the help of the specialists, and Bloom sets off on her journey to go to Althea. Now for some of the notes I have from the 4Kids version. Right off the bat, I noticed something that I haven't noticed before. It's not related to 4Kids at all, but I noticed one of the professors in the background, even though it's Gardenia, which I thought was a little bit funny. Obviously, it was probably just a borrowed character design, but cool little Easter egg. And then also, since 4Kids, I think it's for time reasoning, since this aired on television, they kind of shift things around and cut things out. And it's pretty obvious they did that from the get-go because we get right into the action from the very start. Like, literally within the first minute, Bloom's fighting off against Nut, which was a bit of a shock because it builds up a little bit originally. I'm not sure which I prefer. There definitely are merits to both, but I feel like we don't really know who Bloom is right as we're thrown into it. Not really that big a deal, but it was surprising for sure. Uh, as I mentioned in the Halloween episode, I do think that the Four Kids cast does a really good job at voice acting in general, which is actually kind of surprising for me because Four Kids isn't exactly known for their acting chops. They do have some talented actors. Maybe it's just the dialogue or direction or something, but there's a lot of examples of not great voice acting or just strange direction in other shows, but I didn't notice too much in the Winx Club dub, which is pretty interesting. Stella has tons of attitude in this version, which I love, and they definitely leaned more into the Valley Girl stereotype with her, which, I mean, I guess it fits. I'm not used to it, but it works. Yes, looking at my notes now. The music. I have mixed feelings about the score, which would be like the music that plays in the background, the musical score, if you will. I really like how it sounds. I mentioned this in my Halloween's video. It's very charming and cute, and there's lots of twinkles and strings, and I absolutely love strings. But as someone who spent a lot of time doing music, I found, at least in the first episode, it got a little better in the second one, that the music was pretty darn distracting. I think it might have been partially a mixing problem. It was kind of hard to focus on the dialogue because of how in your face the music was, volume wise, and like songs were constantly shifting, and like everything sort of had a sound effect, similar to how older cartoons like Tom and Jerry were, where there was no dialogue. I felt like they went a little bit overboard with the first episode. I think it's most noticeable when Stella and Bloom are fighting against Nut. But as I mentioned before, I didn't notice it as much in the second episode. I don't know if I got used to it or it got better, but thank God, because it was hard for me to focus at first. Something we hear in the beginning of the episode, which I was a little bit confused by, is Stella tells Bloom that she's got winks. And I was a little bit confused about that because I have no concept of that since it's a Four Kids construct. But apparently, according to the second episode, there is a definition that we get. According to Stella, it's your source of power, what guides you, and your magical identity. Which, if you're coming from the original, it's a little bit confusing, but I don't think it's a bad addition. It kind of tries to like play on the word winks and make it important in the universe, which leads into another thing I noticed. Four Kids, for whatever reason, seems to have like an obsession with trying to expand the Winx Club universe. For better or for worse, I don't think it's a bad thing. It makes it kind of more interesting, like they talk about how many realms there are. They mention so many different creatures that, like, canonically in the original are not in the show. Like, they say that pixies and stuff also attend the school, which completely contradicts with what happens in season 2, since we know that pixies are more like animal mascots than anything else. But it's cool that they tried to add in some stuff to make it seem more magical. That's something that I really enjoyed. And speaking of things that they expanded upon, they also expanded upon Bloom's obsession with fairies as a child, which I thought was actually a really nice touch. We always kind of knew that she liked fairy tales in the original, but they kind of elevated it and made it apparent that she always wanted to be a fairy and that she pretended to be it, which I thought was really cute. I also think that the dialogue in general was pretty darn fun, which I was expecting. There was some good banter between Nut and Stella. And there was also a line that made me laugh quite a bit with Bloom's dad, Mike, when Stella is over at home, completely taken out of it from the battle. Bloom's trying to explain things to her dad and tell him that Stella is a fairy, to which he responds, "Fairy? is that like a goth or something? Which really, really caught me off guard since that is nothing that would ever be in the original. But I thought it was pretty funny. I guess it was because she was like out cold or something. I don't know. And then when we get introduced to Mitzi, there's also her like just straight up mentioning the difference in wealth between her and Bloom, basically by calling her poor, which was it was something. I found it kind of funny. Let's see here. I don't know why they changed this, but for some reason they like completely changed the timeline. Originally, Bloom wakes up, thinks she's late for school, but it's spring break or no, excuse me, summer break. And it's been a little while, but I think it was her birthday, so she got a gift from her dad, which she was hoping was a car, but it's just a bike, and that's when she goes to the park and meets Stella. But for some reason, it's in reverse, and I'm not sure why in the 4Kids version. She meets Stella first, goes to bed, wakes up the next day, and then thinks that it was all a dream, but then realizes that it's real when Stella's still there. Small change, not sure why they did that, but yeah, that's there. Skipping ahead quite a bit, let's get to when the specialists arrive. I can't say too much about the voice cast yet, because they didn't get to say too much, but the one thing that I was really looking forward to that completely kind of took me out of it a little bit, but in a good way, was Dan Green. If you don't know, Dan Green plays Sky in the 4Kids version, and he's definitely a notable voice actor within the 4Kids cast. I think I first heard him as Knuckles in Sonic X, but like what was pounded in my head every time he spoke in this was definitely Yugi from Yu-Gi-Oh! It's pretty much exactly the same voice, which to me, as a big fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! And someone who's been rewatching the 4Kids version, was absolutely great for me. I love it so much. But that might be a bit of a problem for some people who have seen both. It literally just sounds like Yugi crossed over into the Winx Club dimension, which is a bit strange. And I'm not sure if his voice fits Sky, honestly. I kind of feel like Sky, in English versions at least, is commonly miscast. I'm used to his original voice in the Cinelume version, but I will admit he sounds pretty squirrely, like a chipmunk. It's a little bit weird. And then later on, I don't know, like with Nick, I guess it was okay. And with Duar, I wasn't a big fan. So, and then in this version, the 4Kids version, it's just Dan Green. But on top of that, for whatever reason, it sounds, at least in the first episode, like he's always yelling, even when he doesn't need to be, which I found a bit strange. But since it's Dan Green, I'll let it slide. Last note I'll make before I talk about the second episode is I really liked the song that they played at the end, Feels Like Magic. I know that people who have seen the 4Kids version of Winx Club always go on and on about how great the music is, and my only real experience with that would be like the transformation song and the opening. But actually I really liked the Feels Like Magic song at the end. Honestly, it kind of felt like a song that would be in the original, but the quality felt a little bit higher because I will admit a lot of the songs in the early seasons for the original Winx Club, they were a bit rough. They could have used some work. Okay, let's talk about the second episode now. I'll give a quick rundown now for a reminder. Stella and Bloom head off to Althea, and Bloom has to lie about her identity to be let in. We meet up with the rest of the Winx, and they go out to Magic's. The Trix learn of Bloom's identity and want to investigate, so they send out Nut to get her. And the Trix happen upon Bloom while she's out and alone in Magic's, and attack her. But luckily, the Winx are there to save the day. But after she gets rescued, Stella kind of spills the beans about Bloom's identity. And to top it all off, when they go back to Alfea, they get caught by Faragonda and Griselda. And that's pretty much all you need to know about the second episode. Once again, the dialogue was really fun. Towards the beginning of the episode, Bloom has a line that made me laugh. When she sees Alfea for the first time, she goes, "Wow, this makes public school look totally lame-o," which is kind of a lame line, but it just feels kind of out of place, but in a funny kind of way, and the delivery was good, so that was a fun one. Also, I finally understand the Alfea school song. I didn't know what that was before, but apparently it's a song that was made just from the 4Kids version to try to explain the school to Bloom's parents, Mike and Vanessa. And I really liked the song. I think it was a really cute touch. I also liked that when we met Griselda, I feel like she had way more of a presence. Her voice sounds more strict, and for some reason, she has some sort of obsession with turning students into creatures if they misbehave, which is pretty darn harsh. But it totally drills home the idea that she is the really strict one that you want to watch out for. So I really enjoyed Griselda in this version. Later on, we get to meet more of the Winx, so let's talk about each one real quick. Let's talk about Flora for a bit first. I already said this in my last video, but her 4Kids voice is really sweet, and I really, really like it. I like both versions of her voice, but I wouldn't hold it against anyone if they preferred the 4Kids version. I can see why. And on top of that, with the dialogue that they gave her, she seems almost kind of like more like a hippie, I guess. She mentions deforestation, and she tells Kiko that the carrot she gives him is organic, which, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it. I don't think it's a bad thing because it kind of adds to the character, and it's a little bit funny to me because they're from different dimensions, yet they're still pretty similar to the humans on Earth, which I guess could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on what you're looking for, but I'm not personally against it, per se. Tekna, I think it's kind of a cop-out to give smart or royal characters British accents for no reason whatsoever, but I think it's not harmful to the show in any way. I don't really care that much because I think her voice itself does fit, and it does add some diversity within like the different types of voices that we hear within the Winx, which I guess is cool. But yeah, in general, I'm not a big fan of just giving British accents to make some characters seem more sophisticated. Going a little bit off topic, but that was a problem I had with Breath of the Wild, personally. And last Winx we meet for now would be Misa. Misa, I still don't know how I feel about her in the 4Kids version. Her voice actress is Lisa Ortiz, who I absolutely love. I haven't heard her work in Winx Club personally. I'm more familiar with her doing other stuff like Amy Rose in Sonic X, Serenity Wheeler in Yu-Gi-Oh!, and something that I found more recently, but I absolutely adore, would be the English version of Slayers. She plays the title character Lena Inverse, and I absolutely love Lena so much. And although I watched the sub first, I listened to quite a few episodes of the English version, and I think she did a top-notch job. I really love her voice. I already kind of said I don't know how to feel about her with Mitzi because it feels like someone putting on a voice, which is distracting to me. With Misa, I kind of feel a bit similarly. Instead of being a hippie like Flora, they tried to, like, I don't even know what the word would be, make her more like hip. They like leaned into her being a tomboy, so she has like a super raspy voice, and she kind of reminds me of like pop culture. I think the best way to explain it, she reminds me of pop culture in like the late 90s, early 2000s, when hip hop made like a huge impact within not only like the music that people listen to, but also in the fashion with like streetwear and stuff like that. And then it also impacted the sort of slang that people used. That's what Musa kind of embodies for me, which is completely different from her original character. I feel like I need to see more of her to decide if this is a good thing or not. To me right now, it's just kind of distracting because of how different she feels from the rest of the characters, and she's a character that reminds me the most of Earth because of the way that she speaks, which shouldn't be the case. That should go to Bloom. But yeah, we'll see. I do like Musa, and I like Lisa Ortiz, so we'll see. The verdict is still out on that one. Overall, I did have a really positive experience with the voice actors. The Trix, I was actually super impressed by. All of their voices were actually kind of similar to the Cinnaloom version, but they felt a lot more confident, booming, and threatening, including the dialogue that they gave them. I actually felt like the Trix were legitimately a threat, not just from their actions, but by the way that they spoke, which is a really, really good thing. There was even a line that I'm surprised made it into the 4Kids version. I'm not sure if I'm looking into it too deeply, but Icy says at one point that she hates to be a witch about something. And I'm assuming that they meant to use witch as like a euphemism, that's the correct word, for the bee, which completely runs contradictory to what I know 4Kids to be like, especially since they're trying so hard to be network friendly. But I think it was still a good line. I enjoyed it, made me chuckle a little bit, but it still felt in character. And that's pretty much all the notes that I have for the second episode. Overall, I really had a lot of fun doing this. It felt like I was re-watching Winx Club for the very first time, which is something that a lot of people wish they could do with the things that they really like. So I think this is going to be a really fun ride, and I hope you enjoy taking it with me. Hi, present day me back here again, or future, however you want to see it. That is our first episode of the podcast. It feels like magic. This is something that's still really new for me. I love listening to podcasts, but I've never done anything like this before. But I thought I should at least give it a chance, since the series seems like a good way to test out the waters. I hope you enjoy it. And I'll be continuing to talk about every single episode in the 4Kids version of Winx Club. So I hope you'll look forward to that. If you're on Spotify, be sure to follow the podcast so you know when the next one will come out. You can also find out when new videos are coming out by following my Instagram at RosieVisionTV. I don't have a set schedule for these, but I'm trying to get them out twice a month. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think that'll be about it. This was a lot of fun, and I'll see you in the next one where we talk about episodes 3 and 4. Don't forget to keep a little magic in your life, guys. Bye!